In the small village of Loma, everyone knew the rule: never enter the forbidden part of the forest. It was a place whispered about by the elders, a place no one dared to go. But on a hot afternoon, when the sun was high and the air heavy, something strange happened. To me, a playful boy of 12 and his younger sister Ceci were sent to look after their family's goat near the edge of the forest. As they played and chased each other around, one of their goats, a little white one with a torn ear, wandered off. "Where is Nyo?" Ceci asked, her eyes wide with worry. Tumi scanned the area. "He's always running off," he sighed, grabbing Ceci's hand. "We have to find him before dark." They searched every corner of the open field, calling out Nyo's name, but the goat was nowhere to be found. Then Ceci froze and pointed. "Look, his footprints are going there." Tumi followed her gaze and felt his stomach drop. Nyo's tiny hoof prints led straight into the forbidden part of the forest. Tumi knew they should go back home. He had been warned many times about the forbidden part of the forest. His parents had told him it was dangerous, but Nyo was their responsibility. If they lost him, it would be their fault. "We have to go get him," Ceci whispered, her voice trembling. Tumi nodded, though his legs felt heavy with fear. "We'll just go in for a little while," he said, trying to sound brave. "We'll find Nyo and come right back." Together they stepped into the dense trees. The air seemed colder and the forest was much quieter than the outside. Tumi could feel his heart beating faster. Every rustle of leaves made him jump, but he didn't stop. They walked deeper, following Nyo's hoof prints, but the farther they went, the darker the forest seemed to get. As the children continued to walk, they heard something strange, a faint sound like soft singing. It was beautiful but eerie. Tumi paused, straining his ears to listen. Ceci squeezed his hand tightly. "Do you hear that?" she whispered, eyes wide. Tumi nodded. "Yes, but where is it coming from?" They followed the sound, which grew louder with every step. The singing seemed to call them, pulling them deeper into the forbidden forest. Soon they found themselves standing in front of a river they had never seen before. The water sparkled under the fading light, almost glowing. But that wasn't what shocked them the most. What made their hearts pound with fear was that the river seemed alive. As the children stood at the edge of the river, they could hardly believe their eyes. The water shimmered like gold, and the singing they had heard grew louder, echoing all around them. It was soft, almost like a whisper. Then, without warning, the river began to ripple, as if something deep beneath the surface was waking up. Tumi and Ceci gasped and took a step back. Suddenly, the water spoke. "Why have you come here, little ones?" The river's voice was calm, but it filled the air like thunder. Tumi felt his knees shake, but he held Ceci's hand tightly. We were looking for our goat," he stammered. "He wandered into the forest and we followed him." The river's voice sighed. "This place is forbidden for a reason. You must leave before it's too late." Ceci, who had been holding on to Tumi for dear life, suddenly stepped forward. Her voice was small but brave. "Please, we just want to find Nyo. We'll leave as soon as we do." The river rippled again, and the voice returned, this time softer. "You do not understand, child. This river holds a curse. Long ago, a great village chief placed a spell upon it to punish the greedy. Anyone who drinks from this water or disturbs it will never return home." Tumi's breath caught in his throat. A curse? His mind raced, filled with the stories his grandmother used to tell him by the fire at night. But this was no bedtime tale. This was real. "What do we do?" Ceci whispered, her eyes filling with tears. Tumi squeezed her hand. "We have to find Nyo fast, and then we'll get out of here," he whispered back, trying to stay calm. But deep inside, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was very, very wrong. Despite the river's warning, Tumi and Ceci knew they had to keep going. They couldn't return home without Nyo. The fear of the curse lingered in their minds, but they pushed forward, moving away from the river's edge and back into the dense trees. The forest felt heavier now, the air thick with tension. Every step they took felt like the forest was watching them, waiting for something to happen. Do you think the river was telling the truth? Ceci asked, her voice trembling as they walked. I don't know, Tumi replied honestly, but we can't stay here long. Suddenly, a faint bleating sound cut through the silence. Both children froze. It was new. Tumi and Ceci broke into a run, following the sound of the bleating. The sound led them deeper into the forest, and they didn't stop. Their hearts pounded in their chests as they zigzagged between trees and over roots, pushing through the branches. Finally, in a small clearing, they saw him, Nyo, their little goat, standing calmly as if nothing had happened. Nyo, Ceci cried, rushing forward to grab him. Relief washed over her as she heard Nyo's collar. We found you. But Tumi wasn't so sure their troubles were over. As soon as they had Nyo, he felt an uneasy shift in the air. Come on, we need to leave, Tumi urged, pulling Ceci along. But as they turned to leave, the forest suddenly grew darker. The path they had followed into the forest was no longer there. The trees seemed to have closed in behind them, trapping them in the clearing. Tumi and Ceci spun around, their hearts racing. Everywhere they looked, the forest seemed to be moving, shifting as if it were alive. We are stuck, Ceci cried, clutching Nyo tightly. Tumi's mind raced, trying to figure out what to do. They couldn't stay here. They had to get back to the village. But how? And then, through the thick trees, the voice of the river echoed again, colder this time. I warned you. Now the curse is upon you. Tumi's blood ran cold as the river's voice echoed behind them. He heard Ceci close, feeling the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. They had to find a way out of here before the curse took hold of them. I don't want to stay here forever, Ceci cried, her voice trembling. What is going to happen to us? Tumi tightened his grip on her hand. We won't stay. I will get us out, I promise. But deep down, he was terrified. The forest seemed to be watching them, and the trees whispered in a language he couldn't understand. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet rumbled, and the trees swayed as if alive. Then something even stranger happened. The shadows of the trees began to move on their own, stretching and twitching across the ground like long fingers. One by one, the shadows formed into shapes, human shapes. They circled the children, their dark figures looming over them. Tumi's breath hitched. What are they? I don't know, Ceci whispered, trembling. Are they ghosts? One of the shadowy figures stepped forward, its voice hollow and distant. We are those who drank from the forbidden river. We are trapped here, never to return to our homes. Now the curse has claimed you too. Tumi and Ceci backed away, clutching each other as the shadow people circled them. Their hollow eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, and their voices were filled with sorrow. We were once like you, one shadow murmured. We wandered into the forbidden forest, thinking we could live, but we were wrong. Another shadow, taller and older, spoke next. The river cursed us for our greed, for disturbing its peace. Now we are bound to the forest, unable to return to our families. You will be next if you do not escape. Tumi's heart pounded in his chest. But how do we get out? He asked, desperate for answers. We didn't drink from the river. We just want to go home. The shadow figures looked at one another, their expressions unreadable. Finally, one of them stepped forward and said, there is a way, but it is dangerous. What way? Ceci asked, hope flickering in her eyes. The shadow pointed towards the center of the forest. There is a path that leads to the heart of the forest. If you find it, the river spirit may grant you mercy. But beware, no one has ever returned from that journey. Tumi felt a knot form in his stomach. The idea of going deeper into the forest terrified him. But they didn't have a choice. Staying here meant being trapped forever like the shadow people. Ceci looked up at him, her eyes wide with fear, but also a glimmer of trust. Tumi, what do we do? Tumi took a deep breath, trying to keep his voice steady. We have to find that path. It's the only way. The shadows faded back into the trees, their figures melting into the darkness. Remember, their voices whispered, the river spirit is not kind. You must be careful. Tumi grabbed Ceci's hand, his heart pounding in his chest. Let's go. The children walked cautiously, keeping their eyes peeled for any sign of the mysterious path the shadow people had mentioned. The forest was even darker now, and the trees seemed to press in on them from every side, as though the forest itself didn't want them to leave. "Do you think we'll really find the path?" Ceci asked, her voice small and afraid. "We have to," Tumi replied, though he wasn't sure of anything anymore. "We can't give up." As they walked, Tumi kept thinking about the river's warning and the cause. What had those shadow people done to deserve such a terrible fate? And why were they two innocent children caught up in it? Suddenly, the trees parted, revealing a shadow trail leading deeper into the heart of the forest. The path was barely visible, overgrown with thick vines and roots. It was as though it had been forgotten by time. "This must be it," Tumi whispered. Ceci hesitated. "Are you sure?" Tumi nodded, though fear gnawed at his insides. "We don't have a choice. We need to follow it." Together, they stepped onto the path, unaware of the dangers that awaited them. As they followed the path, the forest seemed to grow even darker, and an unnatural chill filled the air. Every now and then, strange sounds echoed around them, whispered, carried by the wind, soft footsteps that didn't belong to either of them. Tumi's skin prickled with fear, but he tried not to show it. Ceci clutched Neil's collar, her eyes darting nervously around. "Tumi, do you hear that?" Tumi nodded. He had heard it too, the soft rustling of something moving just beyond the trees. It was as if they were being followed. "We need to keep moving," Tumi said, his voice barely a whisper. "Don't stop, no matter what." They pressed forward, but the feeling of being watched grew stronger with every step. Then, out of the corner of his eye, Tumi saw something move, a flicker of shadow darting between the trees. His heart skipped a beat. "Did you see that?" Ceci gasped, her voice trembling. Tumi's throat felt tight. "Just keep going," he urged, though his own legs felt like jelly. Suddenly, a low growl rumbled from the darkness. Both children froze, their breath catching in their throats. Something was out there, something dangerous. The growl grew louder, closer, as if circling them. Tumi felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead. Whatever it wasn't friendly. "We have to run," Tumi whispered, his voice barely audible over the sound of his pounding heart. Ceci nodded, fear making her grip on Neil even tighter. Together they bolted down the path, their footsteps echoing in the airy silence. But the creature was fast. They could hear its heavy footsteps crashing through the undergrowth, getting closer and closer. Tumi's mind raced. How could they escape something they couldn't even see? Tumi's lungs burned as he sprinted down the narrow path. Ceci right behind him, her heart coming out in panicked gasps. The growling grew louder, a beast of shadow and hunger chasing them through the twisted forest. "Tumi, it's getting closer," Ceci cried, her voice tighter with fear. Tumi's heart raced as he searched the darkness for a way out, any sign of safety. But all he could see were the towering trees, their gnarled branches reaching down like claws. The forest seemed endless, and the path only grew narrower as they ran. There was no place to hide, no way to escape the monster behind them. Suddenly, Tumi spotted something up ahead. A fallen tree stretched across the path, its roots twisted into a jagged wall. It was their only chance. "Jump over it," Tumi shouted, grasping Ceci's hand and pulling her along. They raced towards the falling tree. Tumi leaped first, barely making it over as his foot scraped the bark. He quickly turned and helped Ceci, who struggled to climb. Neo darted under the gap, his small body slipping through with ease. Just as they scrambled to the other side, the creature burst into view. It was a massive, shadowy figure with glowing red eyes and fangs. Its growl shook the ground beneath them. "Tumi!" Ceci screamed, terrified. With all his strength, Tumi put Ceci down behind the fallen tree and whispered, "Stay quiet, don't move." The creature stopped at the tree, its red eyes scanning the area. It sniffed the air, growling in frustration, but the tree's roots created a barrier too strong for it to cross. After what felt like an eternity, The creature let out a furious roar, then turned and vanished into the shadows. Tumi let out a shaky breath, his whole body trembling. We made it. Ceci collapsed beside him, tears streaming down her face. I thought we were going to die, she whispered. Tumi hugged her tightly. So did I. But we are still here. We are going to be okay. But as they sat in the airy silence of the forest, Tumi couldn't shake the feeling that their troubles were far from over. After the creature disappeared, Tumi and Ceci crawled out from their hiding place. They were both shaking, but they knew they had to keep moving. The path ahead seemed darker now, as if the forest was trying to keep them trapped. We have to find the river spirit, Tumi said, determined it's our only chance. They walked in silence for a while, their footsteps soft on the overgrown paths. But Tumi couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The trees were too still, the air too quiet. It felt like they were walking deeper into a trap. Suddenly, a voice called out from the shadows, "You shouldn't be here." Tumi and Ceci froze, looking around for the source of the voice. A figure stepped out from behind a tree, an old man with gray hair and deep, wise eyes. He wore simple robes and carried a staff made of twisted woods. Tumi's heart pounded at Kito's voice. The old man's eyes, deep and wise, reflected both concern and something unspoken, something that made Tumi shiver. He glanced at Ceci, who hung tightly to his arm, her eyes wide open with fear. "But we can't stop now," Tumi pleaded. "We have to keep going. We have to find the river spirit. We have to get out of this forest." Kito looked down at the two children, his face softening. He could see their determination, their desperate need to get out of the forest. After a long pause, he finally sighed and said, "Very well, I will help you, but the journey will not be easy. The forest is not kind, and it will not let you go without a challenge." Tumi and Ceci exchanged a glance. "We are ready," Tumi said, his voice stronger than he felt. With a wave of his staff, Kito turned and began to lead the way deeper into the forest. The path was narrow, the trees thicker and more twisted than ever. Shadows seemed to move among the branches, watching their every step. Tumi's skin prinkled with unease, but he followed Kito, trusting the old man to guide them. Suddenly, the forest seemed to shift. The air grew colder, and a deep rumble echoed through the trees. From the shadows ahead, a large hulking creature emerged, far bigger and more terrifying than the one that had chased them earlier. Its eyes glowed red, and its massive claws scraped the ground as it moved closer. Tumi grabbed Ceci's hand, pulling her behind him. "What is that?" Ceci whispered, trembling. Kito raised his staff, standing between the children and the beast. "It's the guardian of the forest heart," Kito said, his voice calm but firm. "It protects the forest's secrets. We must defeat it if we want to live here." The creature let out a deafening roar, shaking the ground beneath them. It charged towards them with a terrifying speed, its eyes locked on Tumi and Ceci. Tumi's legs felt frozen, his mind blank with fear. There was no way they could fight something like that. "Stay behind me," Kito shouted. The old man raised his staff high, and a bright light shot from its tip, striking the creature. The beast roared in fury, but it didn't stop. With a mighty swipe of its claw, it knocked Kito to the ground. The old man groaned in pain, his staff rolling away from him. "Kito!" Ceci screamed. The beast turned its gaze on the children. Tumi grabbed a large branch, desperate to protect his sister. But the creature was too powerful. It lunged at them, and with a single swipe of its claw, it knocked Tumi and Susie to the ground, wounding them both. Tumi's vision blurred as pain shot through his body. He looked over and saw Ceci, her face pale and blood trickling from a cut on her arm. His heart sank. They were too weak, too small. This was the end. But just as the creature was about to strike again, Kito rose to his feet, his face filled with determination. He raised his staff once more, chanting ancient word under his breath. The forest around them seemed to come alive. the trees bending and swaying as if listening to Kito's command. Suddenly, roots shot up from the ground, wrapping around the creature's legs, holding it in place. The beast roared and thrashed, but the roots only tightened their grip. Kito limped towards the children. Now, while it's trapped, we must go. Tumi struggled to his feet, wincing from the pain. He helped Ceci up, and together they followed Kito as fast as they could. The creature roared behind them, its red eyes blazing with fury, but it could not break free from the forest's grip. They ran through the forests, Kito leading the way. After what felt like hours, they finally reached a clearing. The forest opened up, and in the distance they could see the familiar spot where the goat had wandered off. But there was something else. To me, look, Ceci gasped, pointing. There, at the edge of the clearing, were their parents and several other villagers, all holding lanterns and calling their names. Tumi's heart swelled with relief. They were safe. They had made it out of the evil forest. Mama, Baba! Tumi shouted, waving his arms. His parents turned, their faces lighting up with joy and relief. They ran towards the children, sweeping them up in tight, tearful embraces. Oh, my children, their mother cried, hugging Tumi and Ceci close. We have been looking for you all night. We thought we lost you, their father added, his voice thick with emotion. Tumi glanced back at Kito, who stood at the edge of the forest watching them silently. He gave the old man a grateful nod. Kito returned it with a small smile before slowly fading into the shadows of the trees. As their parents and the villagers led them back into the village, Tumi and Ceci couldn't help but glance back at the forest. They had faced incredible dangers, but they had survived. And though the river spirit remained a mystery, they knew they had gained something far more valuable, the strength to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The moment Tumi and Ceci stepped into the village, the whole place erupted with cheers. The villagers crowded them, clapping and hugging the children, their faces filled with relief and joy. Their parents stood close, never letting go of their hands, as if afraid they might disappear again. The village elder, a kind woman named Nani, approached them, her wise eyes full of warmth. You are brave children, she said, placing her hand on Tumi's shoulder. The forest is a dangerous place, yet you found your way out. You must tell us what happened. Tumi glanced at Ceci, who nodded. Together, they told the villagers about how their goat wandered into the evil forest, how they went in search of the goats, the strange creatures they encountered, and how Kito had saved them from the terrible forest. As they spoke, the villagers listened in awe, their faces full of wonder and disbelief. Kito, the guardian of the forest, Nani murmured, her eyes wide. It has been many years since anyone had seen him. He only appears to those in great need. Tumi nodded. He warned us, but he also helped us. Without him, we would have never made it out of the forest. The elder smiled, her eyes shining with pride. You two have shown great courage. The forest may be full of dangers, but it has also given you strength. The villagers prepared a feast to celebrate the children's victory over the evil forest, cooking their best dishes and gathering around a large fire in the center of the village. But even as the sounds of laughter and music filled the air, Tumi's thoughts drifted back to the forest. There was still so much they didn't understand. Why had the river not dried up? Why had the forest become so evil? And what would become of the village if the river spirits continued being that way? But for now, Tumi allowed himself to enjoy the warmth of his family and the safety of his home. They had survived the forest, but deep down, Tumi knew their journey was not yet over. The forest still held secrets, questions unanswered, and this only made Tumi grow more curious about what the forest and its evil was about. The night after their returns was filled with dreams for Tumi, dreams of the river, the whispering trees, but the most vivid dream was of the river spirit, its voice echoing through the forest, calling out to him. We are not done, Tumi, the voice said softly. Tumi woke with a start, his heart pounding in his chest. The room was dark, and outside the village was quiet. The only sound was the soft rustling of the wind. And deep down, Tumi knew the truth. The forest wasn't done with him yet. If you are enjoying our stories, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so that we can keep bringing you more interesting and amazing stories. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next story. Bye!